Welcome. This is Impact 2021. My name is Nathaniel, and this is our continued conversation that we have about a number of different topics: religion, race, and actually whatever you want to talk about, because you're a part of this show as well. And so, anyone who is looking live, please feel free to type your questions and your comment into the comment section. And remember, this is a conversation. So if you have something to say, if you have something that you want to have discussed, just put it in, and we'll jump on the topic. Today is a special day because we're talking about the N word. For those of you who don't know, that is the term the racist term that people called Black people. And I'm explaining it because I don't know who's watching and who may not understand what the N word is. The Nigger. And so it's a derogatory term that white people during the slave period and afterwards called Black people. And so African Americans or slaves and former slaves. And so even to this day, some people use that as a derogatory term. But the question that we're asking is about the N word in our current state, about Black people using it in the Black community. And so to do that, we have a wonderful guest with us. Pull you in, Bo. How we doing there? Looks like you might be a little frozen, so we'll work on that. But here's what it is. The conversation we're normally having is about social justice. We're constantly having a conversation about police reform. We're constantly having conversations about race and religion and where race comes in our society. And so at the same time, there's been conversations that have been going on about the N word. And let me acknowledge it off top. This is a distraction. This is a distraction from what's going on. So when you're sitting back and you're trying to do legislation around police reform and police accountability, when you're trying to do things to make sure that people vote, when you're trying to make sure that people have their economic freedoms, regardless of race and religion, oftentimes they throw in some other stuff to kind of distract you from what's going on. They start talking about stuff like, education, educating people about race in the wrong fashion and making people feel bad or being anti-patriotic when you're talking about race. So they throw in some stuff to distract. And I'll acknowledge, talking about the N word and whether or not we need to be using the N word is another distraction. However, I believe that we can both walk and chew gum at the same time. This is not a situation where we have to stop police reform, stop having voting rights, stop having equal rights, and talk about the N word. We don't have to stop, like people want to say, before you can talk about reforms, you got to handle Black on Black crime. No, you don't need to stop. We can do two things at one time. And so knowing that it is a distraction from the actual cause of trying to make sure that we get treated fairly, Black people get treated equally, that police reform happens, that you don't still right to vote, we can still have this conversation, and that's what we're doing today. And so, Bo, are you there?
Hey, what's going on, guys? Yeah,
there we go.
Can you hear me now?
Yep, we got you. Jump right into it. Again, we're talking about the N word. We're not talking about the N word that white people use against Black people. We're talking about the Black on Black N word. That Nigga word, or that Nugga, or if you're from the Deep South, that NUC-KA word.
Yeah.
The one that we use with each other. And so we're not going to talk about whether or not we should use the word or we can use the word, because it's our word. We do what we want. But the question is the use of the word hurting our people? Or is the use of the word hurting also our cause? When we're talking about we want respect and we want to be treated the same way, is that the use? Because we've had people, Al Sharpton, NAACP, they talked about it in the past. And Al Sharpton recently talked about it again. He's saying, look, we got to stop using the word. It's not a term of endearment. What do you think about
that? It's an interesting take because, being Black, I'm from a country town, Tappahannock, Warsaw, Virginia, an hour from Richmond. And I'm the first person in my family to really go to college. So I heard that word a whole lot, from people that were very, very, dear to me, that I respected, and, my family members, parents, grandparents. So for me, I think, when I hear that, like you said, folks like Al Sharpton, I don't have a problem with people having emotion trying to change the narrative on it. I just wish that they would just not take it just from the older approach. Because if you're going to speak for black people, it's just not older black people.
Mhm.
Young people might not have a problem with the word or might not have a problem from what I've seen, having nieces and nephews and hanging with their friends. And you go to these high schools, you have, non-black kids using that word just as much as black kids. And I'm born 84. You really wouldn't see that even a whole lot when we, Nate, you and I are close, peers. That really wasn't a big thing, when we were in high school. That's not that long ago. We old, but you're talking
Right.
20 years ago versus now. And then you look where our parents are at, coming through segregation and our grandparents through Jim Crow. And then, you trace it back. We're not that far removed from, slavery and everything being emancipated and stuff. So the word been going back where, from what I understand, even with black people, using it as a term of endearment or casually or leisurely and based on the region where you're at. I think it's almost like it's hard to get rid of, almost like getting rid of yams or potato salad. It's like
Right.
this. It's like deep rooted in our culture where you really got to hit a little bit of everybody to be on board. It can't just be the old school saying it, because these young folks, they're gonna say, well, why weren't y'all doing that when y'all were our age? Why do you feel that way now? And there's other
Mhm.
things that we need to worry about. Just playing devil's advocate. I hate to use that term.
Right. Well, do you think when you hear the argument, or I don't know if you've heard it, but I've heard the argument, uh, using the N word gets in the way of people respecting us. You're sitting back saying you want respect, but yet you don't respect yourself, or y'all not respecting one another because y'all are calling each other the N word. What do you think when you hear that argument?
I used to have I used to be kind of like agreeing with that years ago. As my former profession, I used to work in radio and television, so I spent a lot of time at a lot of concerts.
Mhm.
Even when days I didn't want to, Monday, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, middle days of the week, I'm just at different shows. So I've seen a lot of people kind of react to that word when other people, are singing lyrics to songs and stuff like that. So it kind of made me look at where it's almost like y'all are giving people a pass where it's not that big of an issue. It was a weird thing to kind of see, because it's like, all right, if you catch them saying this outside of this concert, this
Right.
could probably escalate into a situation. You caught this guy and girl singing these lyrics at their car at the stoplight. This person might have an issue with that. You know what I mean?
That
So it's
brings us to another question. It's different. You'll have young kids who will sit there, and it'll be a black kid, and he will have a white friend that he gave the pass, and that in their group they can call each other the N word. Um, and so, from your perspective, who's allowed to? Are you allowed if you're just brown, if you're Asian, if you're South American, Hispanic? If you who can use it?
I would
Uh,
personally, I would like to think of it, and I failed to mention this on the last reply. Now that I'm older, and I haven't traveled a whole lot of places, but I've had friends from different countries, and I've learned there's certain words that they use, and I'm not part of where they're from, and I've learned not to use those words as I'm learning a new language, as I'm learning their customs, as I'm learning things that they do. Unfortunately for Black people, man, we are African American label. So, we born and raised here, for hundreds of years, to the point that I think that sometimes our personal customs are not respected because it's been homegrown here. So
mm,
people look at it like, well, Black people use the word. So, well, if I use a certain word and I'm not from a particular Asian country, I'm not gonna get no pass. You know what I mean? They can
right.
say certain things to each other, but I can't do that. I was like, why isn't some of our things treated as such? Like everybody wants to join in to use it. I just wish it was a situation where it was just a word that only Black people use. As I've learned that there are words in other cultures that other people use. Didn't know that when I was younger. That's something I had to read. I had to, be around, travel, and kind of understand that, because growing up as a teenager and in my 20s, that's something that I really probably couldn't answer like that. But if you look at,
Well,
especially, go ahead.
you're hitting on an interesting point. One of the points that we had to jump through. Uh, is there a hint of racism? And I hate to just jump there, but is there a hint of racism in here? There's other groups, there's other communities who get to use words. For example, you have females who get to call each other dude, or
Mm-hmm.
even other words that they call each other. It is a term of endearment for them. Only if they're comfortable with that friend or another person that they can call each other that word, it's okay. As guys, we sit there and we call them that. You do it on a rap tape or you do it on a comedy show, that's one thing. But if we call somebody that to their face, oh, that's saying the word. We about to get slapped. And if we were in the professional setting, we about to lose our job. However, they can call each other that. You have the LGBTQ community who are able to call themselves some of the derogatory terms, and they use that as a term of endearment where they use it between one another. You even sit back and you look at white people, and I'm going to use the word, but I don't use this word. White people will call each other white trash, and they will use it so easily that it's not even a offensive word where you can see it on television, you can see it, just regular people use it. I would never call somebody that. Like that's not my word. That's your word. So when I lean to the racism, why is it that our community is the only one who has to have a national conversation about the N word when these other groups in other communities can call each other these words that are disrespectful, yet they use them as a term of endearment. But yet we have to have a conversation with our word that we use. Is that because of the race?
Yeah, and that's kind of what I was hinting at, man. Like I wish there was more sensitivity towards things towards black culture. Like I think as we've grown, we've seen, also like the Stop the Bullying, campaign. Whereas how we grew up, Nate, if somebody messes with you, it's kind of like a rite of passage. You have to learn to defend for yourself, or learn that your cousins or develop friends in the neighborhood to help that little guy or girl to develop that confidence to know what to do. It doesn't also mean to go to active violence, but you know how sometimes things can escalate if kids see they can pick with a certain kid. You know what I mean? So it's like it's weird because with being black, a lot of things are blown out and sometimes they're turned into great successes. You look at hip hop music and how it was started from po folk music, man. You know what I mean, from young kids in the ghetto in New York, and now you got kids who probably are still born in poverty to have the opportunity to become may not be millionaires but thousandaires. you, you know and the word is kind of part of users what helped them get where they're at. And I'm not saying that it's justified, but also if they're black, part of their culture. Like we're saying, they've probably seen their grandparents, great grandparents, like everybody has used that word, and it has made their music relatable. Which is also weird because everybody makes it's relatable because everybody empowers the word, makes it know what it means. It's also like a double-edged sword for black people because we do give it that essence when you are called the wrong, N word. There's an act of violence, randomly with people sometimes, or there's a verbal altercation.
Yeah, comment. We have a problem defending ourselves. I think that comes to the fact of where there's other communities that can use their words that they want to use, but when it comes to ours, we don't get to. We have to constantly defend the fact that we use it. And then it's funny. The conversation has changed a little bit. You have because I know you and I we keep up with sports. You have someone like Kyrie Irving, a black basketball player who got highly offended because someone called him the N-word on the court. Another black person. To the point where it's almost a physical altercation. So we do have some different thoughts there.
Yeah, and I was gonna say, I'm glad you brought that up because that growing up, some older members of my family didn't want to hear that word, so I knew not to use it around them. So being black and having not to use that word around someone black, like if it's easy for me to navigate around that, like it should be easy for other folks. But it's also that thing where black people have this thing about our culture where everybody wants to participate. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing. If we all God's people, we should like our jewels to be shining on the world and everybody appreciate them for what they are. But I also see like when you like playing sports. I've heard that word. I ain't the greatest athlete, but I've definitely been to some games where I've seen some black dudes call some white boys what they're gonna do to them on the field. Playing basketball as well. Like he crossed that, blase blah up. Like you hear it casually, and it's like, man. And it's almost like when that person who's non-black hears that word, it's almost feel like they get accepted. So it's weird. Like I understand the comment, like defining ourselves, because if we don't want, if a certain sector of people don't want people using it, but then also we use it to let other people know, like, hey, man, as long as you don't use it around us, but we're going to call you that and you cool with that. it's weird, and maybe we are the one culture of people that uses our offensive words like that. I don't know. I'm trying to figure it out myself, man. Because, like I
Yeah.
said, as I've learned words from other people, I know not to use that if I'm in a certain country. Like, don't do that.
Oh, yeah. Now I think all black, well, not all. Let me not speak for everyone. I think most. I'll talk about our group, our age group. We know that you don't just walk around calling people that if you don't really know them. Like we all at the basketball court downtown, we kind of everybody know who everybody is, but you don't just walk around using the N word around black people because you don't know who they are. I mean,
Right.
they could be like a Kyrie Irving type of guy where they don't want to hear that.
Mm,
And so it's different. I'll tell you this and you can comment on the role of that. But I'm gonna tell you one of the funniest moments, or one of the moments where I just sit back and be like, "What?" is when you see you see black people just going around calling everyone the N word. They'll call white people the N word. They'll call old people like you just be like, "What does the word even mean to you?" Usually they call the white people that like funny and confusing time. But let me jump to the comment, which is we don't realize that calling someone black is derogatory. I believe you people is much more.
I agree. I agree with that.
Being called colored, boy,
Mm-hmm.
those things are much, much more offensive. And those are words that people use. And we don't call each other that.
Right.
I have ever called, unless you are a boy, like I'll call my son boy.
Right.
I'm not calling no girl boy. You know what I mean? Like I'm not.
Yeah. That's a sign of disrespect if you're trying to do stuff like that. Basically, they're gonna take it the wrong way. Like, so prime example, like there's things that are other derogatory. Like, I agree with the comment. Like there are other things that I would be called. If anybody called me that I wouldn't. Like hearing that and probably take offense to that. Versus the N, but the also is weird with the N word because if someone is actually using the ER, I know exactly what they're trying to say to me.
Yes.
And then I've also, I've been privy, in my life, I've seen group situations where, a non-black person use that word and they've been corrected because they are thinking it's and using it with the A on the end, thinking it's cool.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I get corrected.
There was a story that just recently came out. It's a bad story. There's a gentleman in Florida. I want to get this right. Florida, where they were at a Dunkin' Donuts, or they didn't say Dunkin', they said Dunkin'. The name of the store is Dunkin', and there was a white gentleman who's in his 70s who came in just calling everybody the N-word, acting real, just ridiculous. And the store manager, a black man, and this, younger black man who's under the age of 40, came up to the guy and was like, "Don't use that word." And he used it to hit him, and the guy fell. Well, because he was 70-some years old, like 79, I would say, 77. He died, and now the guy is being charged with manslaughter. And so, unfortunately, as offensive as that word is to us, I think it's still, it'll get you in trouble sometimes because we want to defend ourselves physically, and we feel like we got the right to. And so, that's the unfortunate situations like that. Because we all be like, "Look, if white person call me that, get it." And in this situation, as right as some people may think you was, now you're being charged with manslaughter.
Yeah, man.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, man, it reminds me of a quote of a rapper. He uses the word a lot. rest in peace, Nipsey Hussle. But in an interview, before he died, he was, somebody asked him about something about like, is he getting older? Whatever he would change about younger self. I might be getting the question wrong, but I know part of the quote was he was like, "Man, we as black people or people got to kind of reassess like how we react when we get disrespected." Because I think with him, he was explaining like he used to have a quick temper or whatever. We know a lot of people like that. My mom, she was very hard on me, verbally more than physically. To kind of give me warnings to get my act together around the way. But also, I learned that she told me like, "There's nothing that you will hear outside this house that's going to harm you because you heard it all from your mom. So I don't ever want to hear that you are locked up because somebody you should learn to walk away. Somebody puts their hands on you and says something that's totally different, but people are gonna say weird stuff to mess up your day. You could have a great day at work. You just got paid. I'm older now. I got my kids. I got to watch how, you handle words. Because like you said, with him, that happens to me. I got two little girls and a wife, man. Like I can't can't be, worried about that, but so much. Now, if that person assaulted us, a totally different situation, but just, calling people that, he probably could have handled it another way. It's almost like the Dave Chappelle skit where keeping it real goes wrong. Because a lot of black people are like, hey, man, I like the way he handled that, but I'm hoping that people that say that put some money on his books and pay for his lawyer. If you're going to root on for negative behavior, then you probably should help them out if they're going to be in a criminal situation.
Yeah, no, that's that's a good point. I think that you're, we kind of moving the conversation along, but I think that your mom said 100% right, and I think that's one of the problems that some kids aren't prepared for. You need, if the first time you hear some negative words, or the first time you hear somebody say something offensive to you or shocking to you is outside of the home or outside of your comfort zone, you're not gonna be ready. You're gonna fall apart.
Right.
Talk about how we grew up when we were young, joking one another.
Yeah, you got an older brother, man. You got siblings, man. Me too, man. You know how that go.
Once you go through the fire, you're a little bit more charred and you're ready for the world. Even both of us, as in fraternities, or if you're looking at
definitely,
you get joked, you get called everything. If the people who love you call you these words, when you get out in the real world, somebody who hates on you call you these words, and they mean nothing. I done heard all that before. And so I do think there is a little bit of this newer generation is not prepared because people are not doing what your mom did. Just make sure, look, you done heard all this already. It can't hurt you because if I said it and I love you, those people, when they say it, it means nothing. I've heard that. I can't do nothing.
Especially, you know what I mean? And you was like this as well, like in your early days, and even still now, like active when you doing stuff, like say that happened to me. I went on a run before I did this. Some guys yelling at me, and then how I'm calling you like, hey Nate, I can't make the debate, the live session about the N-word because I didn't hit somebody because they called me N-word. Now I'm locked up. You know what I mean? Like, hey, it could just kind of go left sometimes off the smallest thing if you got a lot going on, man.
Mm-hmm. Another comment. It goes back to our childhood. Sticks and stones may break my bones. It's gonna hurt you unless you believe what they talk about. Right. That's what hurt you. Like, I'll tell you the one that hurts you when you sitting there and somebody call you fat, and you be like, man, I did put on a couple pounds.
Right. You already was looking at that, and you're like, oh man.
Yeah, but it's true. But back to the point that I want to keep it relevant. In your assessment, if we have to give up the N-word in order to, I don't know, move our agenda, is it something that we should do? For example, sometimes it's a give and take in life. To get this, you got to give up that. And is it something that as a community that we should consider, like, hey, maybe we got to start teaching our young people to stop using this word. Maybe we really have to stop using this word because it's going to give us this on the other side. Should we hold on to it and say, no, we're going to keep what we already have and we want this on the other side? How do you feel about that?
At 36, man, you might not like my opinion, but I honestly feel that as a people, if we continue doing what our ancestors have done and what our parents and older siblings and what our generation, what we see the young people are doing, because a lot of good things are happening. Ain't a point of us making too many more adjustments, man. I just think we kind of more so should be compensated for past things. You look at yesterday, people are finally talking about Tulsa, Oklahoma. You know what I mean? So it's like there's so many massacres that happen in the early, 100 years ago that go overlooked. And I'm not trying to sidestep it, but that's really my opinion on it. I'd rather have more talks about the horrible things of acts of terrorism on Black people versus Black people having to adjust a whole culture of a word that was never even, we never made it anyway. It's only an issue because we created a negative word that if someone else gave a negative word on us, that we took it and said, now you can't use it on us. We're the only ones to do that. And I think that other people are really upset about that. And they try to make it an issue where, like I said, if we were Asian culture or Spanish culture or another culture from Europe, and there's a word that they're called that they only use, they would not allow you to say that. There are certain things in this country that if you say something to a Jewish person, I've seen an NFL player or NFL NBA player say something, within the last year about that, immediately reprimanded. You saw there's laws passed that protected against Asians. We get celebrated because somebody got a deserved guilty verdict over police brutality. Like there's so many things that we already bending the knee on. I think that the word is just a distraction over other things that really could be compensated. Because you want me to change the word, but you're not going to change the conditions of why people use the word in the first place. If everybody had the resources and they were educated, then I probably got a different conversation. But if these kids are still going to grow up in a situation where, someone's not in the home because of crime, and I understand you're changing, marijuana laws, but you got a lot of generations of folks now who are grown who've had a job to break out of that. You know what I mean? So it's like, not trying to divert, but I really do feel in 2021 in America that there's other things that they really should kind of bend the knee on more than trying to make black people adjust to a word if you ain't gonna make the conditions change for why the word's here in the first place. It was labeled because it was ignorant things, and then you didn't really give us resources once you freed us, and then you tried to do it, and then you repealed all those laws. And then, look, prime example, like our mother and father went to segregated schools. We 2021, man. Our mother and fathers couldn't drink from the same water fountains as white people. Couldn't go to the same bathrooms, couldn't go to the same schools. Our parents, that's our kids' grandparents. So it's like, man, we just getting in a situation where we're able to use the same bathroom. And y'all still, you're mad because we using the word. But I respect to those, to the culture and being black, respect to those who mind it and don't want to be hurt. Like I said, I do have family friends that don't like it, and I try my best not to, use it around those. But and on my thoughts about it, man, I just do feel it's kind of been a diversion as I've had to learn things that weren't taught to me in school. They would teach me certain things, but like I said, I had to learn about Tulsa, Oklahoma when I was 30 years old. 300 black people died because of something that was a lie.
Right.
I would have liked to have known that in history class.
Would have been nice, right? Yeah. Well, at least the kids are learning now.
Right, man. For emotion. That's grace of God. Be happy about that. I ain't gonna be bitter.
Well, we got another comment. Getting rid of the word doesn't change attitudes, and I think that's kind of going on what you're saying as well. Getting rid of the word ain't gonna change nothing. May not change anything. That's the more pronounced way to do it. So our time is pretty much gone. But I do want to say though is thank you for this discussion. This was a good discussion. And it's gonna sound a little arrogant, but I'm gonna say, but that's it. All right, we don't have to talk about it. This does not get in the way of what we need to do. This does not get in the way of stopping people from seeing the rights to vote, especially hampering the black community to vote. This does not get in the way of police reform. This does not get in the way of systemic racism. So I don't want to hear people talking like I'm the last. Don't come talking to me like, well, but first, we need to talk about no. But first, nothing. We had a conversation. I would, I know you're a professional, you have a job, and you've never used that word. I'll sit here and I'm gonna tell you, man, I've used the word, still use it to this day. I use it differently than I used it when I was a kid. I grew up in the 90s, it was a different situation. But look, that don't stop anything when it comes to responsibility. So I just wanted to make that clear to people who sit back and be like, oh, we need to continue the conversation on the N-word. Nah, we can put a pencil in that, put a pin in that, as they say. Let's get this work done. Let's make sure that our sons and daughters in the future have more rights than we have. Let's continue to move that along. Where one day when they see those red and blue lights, they don't have to start sweating the same way we do.
Nate, because I'll tell you this, man. If you do the work, it puts a lot of people in the environment where you ain't gonna use the word, and you got a lot of idle time. The devil gonna make you use that word a whole lot. That's why black people be able to get away with it. They wanted to neglect our communities, and they wanted to figure it out on your own all over the country. And that's why that word was adorned within the community. It was all we had. And then you started accepting folks and giving us more rights and able to do stuff. And then the word kind of got spread about, and music kind of helped, and TV and stuff. But I'm with you, man. If you do the work, less opportunity for those who do have a problem with it. There's less opportunity for folks to use it.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Because if you're telling people to register to vote and you're telling them what to do and you know what I mean, be aware of the laws, it's more of a different conversation.
You said it right. You know, at the end of the day, I want to make those people who, not the black people, because whoever use the word, or black people or white people, I want to make people who use that word use it all the time. Look at these N words out here changing laws. Look at these N words out here changing how police do what they do. Look at these N words out here that they're gonna have the same economics that we have. Yeah, I want to make you say that, Jerry. Say it all day long because you'll be mad at what we about to do. And so that's the plan, man. That's what I hope our young people and we all get to do. Thank you both for joining us. This was a great conversation. Appreciate you.
No problem, man. Thanks for having me, guys.
Showing up and showing out, as they say. For everyone, this is Impact 2021. Continue to join us as we have on Thursdays. We have a Bible study here. On Sundays, we have church as well, or the service as well that you join on to on Facebook and YouTube as well. Continue to join us. And again, we'll be here next week, Tuesday at 8 o'clock. Both, thank you again. Everyone, have a good one and join us again.
All right, man.